There is an awesome new feature. Well, there's actually quite a few awesome new features in AVP version 2.5, but there's one in particular that I'd like to talk about in this tutorial that can really change your workflow and can give you even more options in editing and polishing and refining your stitches. So in versions before 2.5, everything I'm about to show you was possible, but it was just a lot harder to do. But in this version 2.5, they make things quite a bit easier. So we've got this little segment here, just a little experiment. It's not a very long little bit, just a few seconds, but as you can see, it's me walking through this cool warehouse. Pretty basic stuff, but it's great for this example. And basically what we're going to be doing is exporting each individual camera, as you can see here, as its own separate video, and then we can pull that into After Effects later, all of those cameras individually, and bring them and composite them into one comp, and you can do a whole variety of different edits and changes. So this is kind of just one little notch in your tool belt that won't obviously fix everything with one click, but it will allow you to isolate certain elements in your clip if you have any specific reason to isolate those, or if you need them for further editing in After Effects. So now with AutoPaint Video Pro version 2.5, you can export ProRes files. And specifically, you can actually export ProRes 4444, which retains transparency. So all you have to do is go to Render up here and then choose your output type, choose ProRes MOV, and then you can come down here and choose your profile and choose either 4444 or the same 4444 with XQ. I don't recommend this because this is just basically higher quality, which is fine, I guess, if you're shooting with like Reds or something. But for the most part, if you're shooting on the GoPro or any other smaller kind of portable action cam for 360 stuff, the 4444 is plenty. In fact, it's overkill, but it's the only ProRes format that supports transparency. Even ProRes 4444 for like GoPros and other action cameras that you might be shooting with for your 360 stuff, this is pretty overkill. Even Proxy 422 Proxy would be overkill as far as bitrate goes. But this here is the only ProRes format, and this one, of course. The 4444 is the only ProRes format that supports transparency. So you have to choose this if you want to do this technique that I'm about to show you. But anyway, that's where you choose your export. So let's go ahead and go back. I got a little bit ahead of myself, and I can show you how to actually isolate each one of those individual cameras. In your Finder, where you have your project file, so I'm actually in shot05.kava. So what I'll do is I will just create a quick folder to keep things organized, and I can do like a dash cameras over here just to keep it organized. And what I'm going to do is duplicate this once by hitting Command D on my keyboard, or you can right click and find duplicate right here and do that if you'd like. And then I'll go ahead and drag this copy into here just to create a new copy. So what I'm going to do is basically start out like this, shot 5, we can go cam 1 or something like that. So we have our first cam 1 project file here, and it's all set up and ready to go. And before we do any duplicating to get all the other cameras through 6, we need to set up a few things here in the camera 1 project file. So the only thing we really need to do is come into render here, just click this. We're not going to actually render anything, but we're going to set up the project's render settings, if you will. So in here, we'll just want to choose our ProRes MOV as the output type, and then choose Apple ProRes 4444 as the profile. Audio source doesn't really matter too much. You can change that if you'd like, if you have a specific camera maybe that was recording, or you can choose no audio if you want as well. I'll just leave it as the default first there, and then you can go ahead and choose where you want to save this. I'll just leave it in here since it's simple enough. And the other really important thing is sometimes you'll see your project and it'll look like this as the name. We'll want to alter this and make sure it says cam 1, because if we leave this just as the default, all the other project files that we duplicate after this will actually have the same name, and therefore will write over themselves when they're rendering, and you'll just end up with one file rendered 6 different times, and you won't actually have 6 separate files. So make sure to change the name here to cam 1 or whatever camera you're in as your project, and then click save. And again, we don't need to render anything, so we're just going to make sure we set all that up properly. And of course, we want to make sure that our size is set at 4096 by 2048, or whatever resolution you'd like to export and use for this project. Sometimes this number gets really high and crazy if because the maximum output allowed by this type of media, the ProRes, is 16,000 pixels. So it's very, very large, and sometimes that will get bumped up to that. And I guess if you really want, you could export a file that large, but you definitely don't need it. So we'll go ahead and leave that as it is there. And if it is not that, go ahead and change it. And we can come down here and see our real output and make sure that everything looks good. It is the 4K at the 80 frames per second, which is exactly what we want. And then I'll go ahead and hit apply, and all that does is apply those render settings to this project. It doesn't actually start rendering anything, as you can see, and we'll be good to go. So those are our defaults that we want to save. So now we don't have to do that 6 different times. The only thing we'll have to change each time is that file name, and I can show you once again how to do that. Then the last thing we need to do, obviously, is isolate the camera that we want to render. Okay, click edit again. And it's actually really simple to isolate cameras in APG. You don't have to worry about any of the major tools up here. All we really are worried about is this little area at the bottom of the screen. So all we need to do is twirl down this top row here, and you'll see that we have all of our cameras listed. There's check boxes next to each one of them, obviously. So if you disable one, you'll see that it goes away. So the fastest way to do this is just to disable all of them and just enable the camera that you'd like, which is camera 1, the very top there. So I'm going to go ahead and hit save after that. That's all we need to do. We can go ahead and quit out of AutoPanoGiga, and you'll see that AVP automatically updates from that APG change that we made. So the asterisk is there again, so I'm going to go ahead and hit save, make sure we've changed all that, and you can double check, make sure all your render settings are as they were, and it looks good. So go ahead and hit apply. So I'm going to go ahead and hit save on this project there as well. And we can quit out of AutoPano Video, and let's go ahead and come in here and duplicate these 5 times to get a total of 6 projects. So all I'm going to do now is come and rename these. Okay. Then obviously we just go through each one of these project files and isolate the cameras we want. So now if you come in here and click on render, you'll notice that our file settings are already correctly set up and everything looks good. The only thing we'll want to change here is the camera number, and I'll just change that to 2. And you don't even need to click in the button there, you can just do it right inside of that. And then I'll go ahead and hit apply. You'll see the asterisk pop up. That means that we have added changes. I'm going to go ahead and hit save just to save it. And then I'll come into edit. And that will bring up AutoPanoGiga for us. Go ahead and hit edit again, and then you can twirl down like I showed you before and isolate just camera 2, and we'll be good to go. So I'm going to hit save, quit out of AutoPanoGiga, and we can double check here, and we can see that number 2 is the camera that we have isolated. So we're good to go. Hit save again, quit out of AVP, and you can go ahead and do it for the rest of your cameras. Change your render settings. Everything is good there. We'll just change our number. Apply, save, edit again, and we are in camera 3 again, so I'll enable camera 3, hit save, quit out of APG, automatically will update here. We can triple check again, make sure that 3 is there. We are good to go. Hit save, render settings look good. Save again, hide AVP, come into camera 4, open that up. Change our render settings on camera 4 here. Switch this over to 4. Apply. Good to go. Click edit. Edit again. Twirl down. Disable all the cameras. Enable camera 4. Save, quit. Double check here. 4 is looking good. 4. One more time on our render. 4. Great. Save project, hide. Second to last camera here, camera number 5. So once you have all your cameras set up, I like to open up back to camera 1, and we can go ahead and again double check. We're in camera 1 there. And now all you have to do is get these all rendered out and sent over to After Effects. So I'm going to go ahead and hit Batch Render, open up this window over here, and all we have to do is drag in all of our projects. AVP will recognize them all and be ready to go. And we've already set up cam 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 through 6. And you'll see that all the names are different. You can double check those there so they won't write over themselves. We've basically set them up to save in this folder here, the shot 05-cameras. So we'll watch for them there. And with ProRes, they actually should render out pretty quickly. So we'll be able to watch them go. So I'm going to go ahead and hit play here and let them do their thing. All right, so you see everything rendered out pretty quickly. We can come in here and see all of our separate files with the previews there. And you can see that they're white now where all that black was, and that's just registering the alpha channel, the transparency behind. You can see that they actually still play through and everything, so it's pretty cool. Makes it really easy to then pull these into After Effects. And these are basically set up, obviously, as equirectangular images, and this is the full image that the GoPro recorded, each camera recorded, so you're not losing anything because of stitch lines or anything. So this is absolutely everything with all of the overlap in each one of these images. So you'll see why that's really handy, if you don't already, inside of After Effects once you can kind of visualize it. So now all we have to do, we'll close out of that, is we can open up a quick project here in After Effects. And if you're already familiar with compositing with VFX, if you're a VFX or if you're an After Effects master, I'm sure you already understand why this is important to have all these as separate assets. But I'll go ahead and drag these in and show you anyway, just so you can kind of get an idea. So I'm going to go ahead and select all of them and drag them down to my new comp button here. And make sure this is deselected. You don't want to sequence the layers because it will just put it all in one track. So you want to have everything as separate layers. Single composition is what you want. Then you can use the dimensions from any one of them because they're all the same, obviously. But you go ahead and leave that at the default and go ahead and click OK. And once our comp finishes loading, we can zoom in here a little bit. You'll see that we have a complete composition all put together. Everything is overlapping. You'll notice all these gross edges though. Clearly those are things you'll want to fix. But the idea here is that you have your entire composition, your entire stitched equirectangular footage as separate assets. So you can now pull things out, you can morph things, switch things around, and do it that way. So the reason this is beneficial isn't because you'll now want to go in and try to feather all this out, mask things out, and basically do what AVP does with all of its stitching. Why this is beneficial is because then you can take a completely stitched, as best as you can, stitched image from AVP, put it underneath all of these right here in this area, and then basically pick and choose little segments from certain cameras. So say you had an issue with like this area over here, instead of trying to redraw a certain video clip in Photoshop or something, you can mask things out inside of After Effects, you know, do all sort of fancy stuff like that. So I'm not even close to VFX artist is what a lot of people call that. So I can't, claim to be anywhere near qualified to tell you how to do certain things. But I can say that getting this information over from AVP, so using the best of both worlds, is really, really beneficial to polishing up your stitches and making them look good. I've done this a few times with a few shots. I've mostly been able to figure out everything else through other means, but this is a great sort of last-ditch effort. Or just a way to get out a certain asset if you want it, to help composite with your final image. So this is how you get all those separate cameras from AVP over to After Effects in their distorted equirectangular format, all ready to go, synced up and ready to polish and edit and do really, really advanced techniques if you need them. So there you go.